All right, so today we're diving into something that really I think illustrates just how fragile things can be, in our modern world.
Yeah, definitely fragile and interconnected in ways we don't always think about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to be a big takeaway from this deep dive that we're doing. We're going to be looking at the power outage at London's Heathrow Airport.
Right, Heathrow, huge international hub, obviously.
Yeah.
And this report we've got here really breaks down what happened and just how big of a deal it was.
Right. So the mission here is to understand like what exactly happened, what were the consequences immediately, and then how do they start to recover?
Yeah,
We don't have to get into every little detail, but we want to walk away, understand just how big of a deal this was.
exactly.
So to set the scene, this happened on Friday night, March 21st, 2025.
Friday night,
Oh, man.
right? Can you imagine?
Not a good time for something like this to happen.
Not a good time at all. So Heathrow experiences a complete blackout, total blackout across the entire airport. And this report says it was due to a fire at a nearby power substation.
And I'm guessing this substation was probably pretty crucial to Heathrow's power supply.
Oh, absolutely. They talk about Heathrow in this report as like guzzling electricity, like a small city.
Right.
So, even if they have backup power, which they do, it just wasn't enough to keep everything running.
Wow. So what happens when a place that's that dependent on electricity just suddenly loses it?
Well, the immediate impact is pretty obvious. Over 1,000 flights grounded.
Over 1,000.
Yeah, that's not just a number. That's thousands of people stranded, their travel plans just completely thrown into chaos.
I can't even imagine the frustration being so close to your destination, maybe even seeing London out the window, and then suddenly everything comes to a halt.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a massive ripple effect, too. Think about all the connecting flights, the people waiting to pick up passengers, the businesses relying on those travelers getting through. It's a huge web of interconnected systems that just gets disrupted.
Right, and all because of a fire at one power substation.
It really highlights how vulnerable these massive transportation hubs can be, even with backup systems in place.
So what happened next? I mean, you can't just have a major international airport shut down indefinitely.
Right. Well, the good news is that the outage wasn't super prolonged. By Saturday morning around 6 a.m., power was restored to Heathrow.
So less than 12 hours of downtime. But I bet the recovery process was still a monumental task.
Absolutely. And the report actually highlights some of the challenges they faced.
Like what specifically?
Well, for starters, think about all the planes that were grounded. They're not in the right places now. Crews are out of position, and then you've got this massive backlog of passengers all needing to be rebooked. It's a logistical
It's
nightmare.
like trying to untangle a giant knot of airplanes and people.
It requires a ton of coordination, and this report actually mentions that British Airways put out a warning saying that there could be ongoing delays even after the power was restored.
So even though the lights are back on, the disruption continues.
Yeah, there's definitely a ripple effect that lasts for a while.
Now, what about the cause of all this? Did they ever figure out what started the fire at the substation?
Well, this report says that the investigation was still underway at the time it was written, so we don't have all the details yet. But I think what's really interesting is how this event exposes the limitations of backup systems in a place like Heathrow.
Yeah, they were saying earlier that Heathrow uses as much electricity as a small city. So it makes you wonder, even with backups, how do you prepare for something like this?
Right. It raises some really important questions about infrastructure and resilience, especially as our world becomes more and more reliant on electricity.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So to wrap things up, it seems like the big takeaway here is that a seemingly isolated event, like a fire at a power substation, can have a huge impact on a global scale.
Yeah, and I think it's a reminder that even with the best technology and planning in place, these complex systems we rely on are still vulnerable.
And as much as we like to think we're in control, sometimes things happen that are completely outside of our control.
Definitely. And for all of us who travel or rely on these interconnected systems, it's something to keep in mind.
All right, well, that's our deep dive into the Heathrow power outage. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me. It was a fascinating discussion.